Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of 100 Days and Beyond, and in the addition to our 100 Days and Beyond podcast, which is the Fractional CMO Marketing Leadership podcast, where we talk to what I think are marketing specialists, people that have proven themselves in the marketing industry. Because we use this as an extension of the 100 Days and Beyond podcast, which is more about mergers and acquisitions. Many times the M&A fraternity and the people within the space around buying, selling, growing, and developing businesses need marketing and marketing leadership. And as a work stream within the M&A space, marketing leadership is tantamount, a brilliant way of actually growing and developing and capturing value in terms of M&A work and buying and developing new businesses. When we look at individuals that take part in specific industries, and we've covered quite a few industries already in our podcast, but today I think specifically, I don't think we've covered anybody yet in the fashion space. And Adam today, welcome Adam.
Hey Dudley, thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome. And Adam today is going to cover what I think is a very important part of the world of business and so on. Although it's very much a marketing based podcast, we talk about marketing leadership in the context of business growth, value creation, and not only that for companies who are in this particular industry, but more so for consumers, for people making use of and developing their abilities around talking to consumers and being able to engage directly. So welcome Adam. Adam is NED COO, founder, based in London, which is fantastic. I love the way that you come across. In your first line of your LinkedIn profile, Adam, you talk about bright, articulate, capable, and committed. I love that.
Yeah, I wrote that myself, obviously.
That's brilliant. I love that, and that's a great way to start. So you got commercially strong, problem solving, and I want to cover some of your specialities and so on. Adam, you got an incredible career, and I wonder if you could sort of go through from the start, sort of how did you get into it? Was this your passion when you started? Was this something that you really wanted to get into? Was this something that developed over time?
Well, I suppose as we get through our careers, we spend quite a lot of time kind of post-rationalizing why we are here and doing what we're doing. And I think if I look at why I'm doing what I'm doing now, I can go back to university. I was doing a degree in medical sciences at the University of Southampton. And I left there to go and do a much more detailed postgraduate course at the University of Birmingham in neuropharmacology. And whilst I was there, I say yes to everything, by the way. And whilst I was there, I was asked to get involved in building a website for the department I was working in. I said, yeah, absolutely, delighted to do that. So I did that, and I became very interested very quickly in how you can influence people's behavior and groups of people's behavior from a single point. So from the website that we built, we were able to deliver our information into the world, and then that would have an effect on the people that were reading it. And I became fascinated in that. And when you look at post-rationalizing things, the neuropharmacology degree that I was doing was based on Alzheimer's and Parkinson's diseases. So I was learning how and why people forget. And I guess over the last 20 or so years, we've kind of changed that into flipping into learning about how and why people remember things. So I love the mechanic, I love the industry of advertising and marketing. I love engaging with people, and I love creating stories and environments that people remember. And that's what we do.
Yeah, I love that because it's I mean your background is pharmacology. And it's I mean you got a BSc in pharmacology and I'm just got to say that that's, I suppose if you look at that transition from understanding sort of a specific niche and then being able to convey and develop a message around what needs to go, because there are two aspects in marketing. I mean, you may or may not agree, but there's obviously the technical aspect, which, developing a website, you've got to do HTML and PHP and CSS and all these other acronyms and and so on, and all the technical things around it, and also being able to reach your audience in multiple platforms. But on the other side, it's the messaging. It's not just, it's about being that wordsmith, having the ability to communicate, not just in words, but in visual form as well. So where would you say is sort of what appeals to you more? Or are they is there a combination of the two?
Okay, I'd add a third element into that, which is the data. So, and I think actually thinking about it, the data links my previous path with my current path, in that, anything that you would be doing in research is purely about the data that will inform the next decisions that you do. And certainly marketing should be data focused. We use focus groups to pull in qualitative data. You can do quantitative data to understand how and why people are behaving with things. So I would add that in there as well. It also leads into the stream of the industry that I'm particularly interested in. And I'm particularly interested in how, where, and why people engage with potential commercial advertising messages. So really, when it comes down to it, I'm a media man. I like finding where the connection can be made between a brand and the consumer.
Yeah, because if I look at your specialities, and I want to touch on that, because I think that's some of the things that sort of stood out for me before we had a quick conversation before the podcast, but also when I was looking through your profile and that. I mean, you talk about creating bespoke deals for advertisers, understanding the consumer, media evaluation, launching brands, consumer behavioral research, media trading, leading high performance teams, etc. But it's all about, I think you're right, it is about the data, isn't it? It's about understanding that, plus also the behavioral elements to it, because you obviously got trigger response, you've got various things which either elicit some kind of attention from your audience, and then being able to engage the audience, and I'm guessing the data helps you with that. Is that sort of where you lean towards?
Yeah, completely. So as you get into your careers, you learn more, you experience more, you understand more, and the gut feeling that you can have on why and how you want people to behave is a great broad brushstroke in terms of building out a plan, but it has to be underpinned with research, with data, with facts. Otherwise, it's just another opinion.
Yeah, and there's a lot of opinion out there, and I like your approach there. And I think it's probably part of your value system, where you talk about evangelizing transparency.
Very much so.
And I mean, there's always this. I suppose that when you talk about a salesperson or someone in marketing, it's like, yes, someone is a bit of manipulation and a bit of, it could be sort of what we call, the old days we used to call it snake oil tactics, the used car salesman type of environment. But it's become a real science now, and I think there is almost an obligation from marketing and sales people, but especially marketing leaders, to be transparent. Tell us about how you came about that as what you call one of your specialities.
So the transparency part rather, is what was formed out of opaque and potentially misleading supply chains in digital media. So very basically, to deliver an impression out to a consumer, you would book something on a DSP, a demand side platform. Campaign would run through that. It would go through an exchange. It would be delivered through a supply side platform onto websites, and ultimately out to the consumers. Now that's a supply chain of maybe 4 or 5 intermediaries. What you then started having introduced into that were blind, opaque networks that were trading impressions without the knowledge of the advertiser at the very beginning. So everybody loses out in that instance. The advertiser doesn't get what they're thinking that they're getting. The media owner isn't getting paid fairly for any activity that's running on their websites, and everybody loses. And that was only ever possible because the supply chain was opaque. So I became very, very concerned about the transparency and what we were doing and what we were planning and how we were presenting media solutions to clients. Were they actually being delivered? So to deliver that, we needed to put a stamp of transparency on it, on everything we do, and we are fully open, fully disclosed. We are consultative in our approach with our clients, and we make recommendations on what the right tech stack needs to be. But ultimately, if everybody along that supply chain is acting in the interest of the client to do the right thing by them, by changing the behavior or shifting product, then hopefully we're in the right place. But we all have to be aligned to do that.
Yeah. So what do you, if I take a day in the life of Adam, so what does that look like? Because I'm guessing there's quite a lot of aspects to what you do and how you do it. Give us a sort of a taster of what your life is like in your space.
Well, I'm afraid a day in the life of is any day that I would pick would be very different to any other day. But certainly, days tend to kick off with making sure that everything that we have live at the moment is working, seeing if there are any anomalies in any of the data that we're seeing through from results of the day before. If there are, we're flagging it immediately to clients and all media owners as to finding out how and why certain things have happened. But increasingly so, we're in the data all the time to make sure that the plans that we believed in and then backed up with research and data are actually being delivered exactly as they should be. So there's quite a lot of that. We are in high aggressive growth mode as a business at the minute. So there are an awful lot of new business conversations going on, and there are an awful lot of team building conversations going on. It's fair to say that in the early days of any business, every day is exciting and terrifying and amazing in equal measures. But the content of any particular day is vastly different to any other. We're just always on, really.
Tell me a little bit more about that, because that's fascinating to me for people to have. I mean, if I look at your career, you've gone, it's almost like you've been in a learning and experiential career to a certain extent, and you almost like that the challenging aspects of it,
I
because you're putting
do.
yourself out there a lot.
Yeah, well, as I said at the beginning, I love the industry. Sorry, do excuse me. I do have a little bit of a cold here today, but I love the industry that we're in. I think it's a perfect balance of science and creativity, and using getting those two in balance delivers great things for clients. But what I've done over the course of my career is to learn as much about the industry as possible, so that I could deliver on what I always wanted to do, which was to run my own business. And that's what we're doing. And that's what Passion is. Passion is a media agency that we set up set it up properly in March 2022, but came up for air in June of this year. And I'm knocking on wood as I'm saying this, and I hope it's not interfering with the sound, but it's going pretty well. I'm very happy with where we are at the moment. As I say, we're in aggressive growth in every area that we look at the business, and I think we've got our positioning right.
So what made you take that leap? Because we've just literally come out of a pandemic. I mean, if you look at the state of the world at the moment, it's in, I don't know if it's an understatement, but it's in flux. And yet you're out there, making a decision to go and establish a new media company. Obviously, you've got a lot of experience and knowledge and network and so on that's come with it. But what was sort of what got you to say, okay, well, this is it. I'm going out and now, as opposed to previously or waiting a little bit.
So I think you've actually used the magic word there, which was pandemic. And what happened in pandemic is everything changed. So people's work days changed from being a slave to the commute, going in and out of London or wherever every day, to being able to work from home. The money that people use changed. We saw a rise and indeed a bit of a fall of cryptocurrencies, but their adoption came into mainstream. We saw businesses outsourcing talent and relying on different things. It basically changed everything. What I also think is that it changed the way that people think about their wants and needs in the world. I think the world became more cautious and more conservative in their spending habits. So the needs were met rather than the wants. And what I thought that then gave us was an opportunity to launch a business without any legacy trading issues, without any legacy process, but that was born out of the change in behavior that the pandemic forced upon the public. And if we can meet and deliver against that, then we were doing the right thing in a very contemporaneous manner for our clients. And that's what we thought the opportunity was to do it, because everything changed.
Yeah, everything changed, and I think in the marketing space and the media space, we're seeing this this effect of polarization. We're seeing people either losing or gaining identities that may or may not conflict with reality. Sometimes we're seeing a whole lot of changes in the market space, and it's I think creating, besides a chaotic environment, but it's also creating opportunity. And I want to congratulate you for taking that leap and actually doing it. What's really interesting out of your and not many people probably focus on these things unless you've actually done these tests yourself. But we've got the Clifton Strengths, and we've got is it Kobe, and you've got the Myers-Briggs, and I see you've done the Myers-Briggs one. And what was really interesting that stood out for me was you are an ENTJ, and it says ENTJ, and when I did a bit of research on that, is one of the least common types in the population, and the rarest type among women.
Okay.
So what stood out for me there was strategic, logical, efficient, outgoing, ambitious, independent, effective organizers of people, and long-range planners. So if that's just a little snippet. Tell us about that the test. Why did you do it, and has that sort of the understanding of who you are, has that helped you in your career?
I think so. I do like the test, and I like the outcome, and it's been a while since I visited the description of it. So thank you for reminding me of that. That sounds great. What I like about it, and the reason that I use it, if I put it front and center in my description of me, then you know exactly what I am from an independent test, rather than reading through and getting my opinion of who and how I work. So that's what I did with that. I think it also explains an awful lot of behaviors when you kind of understand the makeup of other people's personalities, of how and where you're going to be able to work better, where things need work on, where relationships may need some progress. I think having a description of it is very helpful for doing that. And ultimately, we're all in marketing together, and we're in a people industry. And it's about understanding how and why people work the way that they do, which gets us on. So I think in terms of efficiency, which is one of the things that you said, putting my description front and center aids efficiency massively, I'd hope.
I love that. And I think having the confidence of sharing that, and I'm guessing you also get drawn to other people with energy, ambition, long range, future understanding, that there's a connection between sort of similar types.
Yes.
But there's also a value in trying to work with people who might not be the same as you, to almost bring you back into sort of let's call it more of a balanced view of life. Because sometimes if you're too forward thinking, you actually don't think about the now. Do you find yourself doing that sometimes?
Oh, completely. Which again is why it's really useful to have an audited personality type, if you like. So when we're building out teams, we know that we should not be looking at clones of ourselves, for many reasons. We need to have multiple perspectives on problems. We need multiple backgrounds, diversity, etc., to be able to build out a fully rounded team. And having kind of Myers-Briggs qualification, or categorizations rather, helps that.
Do you do that with your team? Do you actually get them to do the test as well, or is that still on the horizon?
It's on the horizon. We haven't actually done it yet, but it's certainly something that as we build out, it will be really useful to stop conflict drifting into growing business.
Yeah, I've seen with teams that do these kinds of tests. I mean, there, as we know, there are quite a few of them. The one is Colby, not Kobe. Colby, Clifton Strengths, Myers-Briggs, and so on. But I think what I'm really enjoying about the working environment these days and building up of teams is especially being more focused on strengths and less focused on weaknesses and on the things that you can't do, and rather build teams around what forms or creates. And I don't want to use a cliche, but I mean, I'm going to but the word synergy and the ability to bring people's strengths together to get a much better outcome at the end. There's a big drive towards rather doing that. I remember being at school, and you get home and you got a report card, and everything else is sort of good marks, and you go, one subject you didn't do very well at, and that's the one that was focused on, and that the one, like, you better improve that one. It's like, but hey, wait a minute, I did okay with the others. So and I'm really enjoying that shift in saying, look, there are things that you're just not good at, or you just don't have the passion or the energy for. Let's focus on the places that you can actually excel in, and that awareness, I think, has been quite good from speaking to so many people as well, and seeing that has got such a positive impact. Would you think that is the correct way? I mean, is that something you want to develop in your organization?
To develop synergistic skills and to pull the skills. Yeah, absolutely. We want to make sure that we're doing the right thing for our clients, and to be able to do that, we need to have multiple perspectives on things. There are many right answers, not just the one that we come to too quickly, and it needs to be considered for multiple people to be able to do that. So yeah, but I would also think that should be something that everybody's doing. It's getting the balance right is crucial.
Is crucial, and it's difficult also, I think, sometimes when you have a certain let's say personality profile, and you need to pitch for work, because that's what you're doing a lot of at the moment. I mean, you're putting out proposals, and you're
Yeah.
talking about who and what you are and what you can do and how you can help benefit people and so on. And then you might come up against someone who's potentially more, entirely different to you. Let's say on the opposite side of the of the continuum, dealing with the objections that you may or may not have thought of. Tell us a bit about that sort of thinking process. How do you handle that? I mean, you're a guy with a great experience, and you've got a great career behind you. Tell me a bit about that whole proposal process that you go through, and how you prepare and pitch.
So I sigh here, because everybody in our industry goes through an awful lot of RFPs and delivering proposals out to clients. Now, the really good ones are the ones where we are able to, as a business, express ourselves and to showcase the work that we do and how and why we do it, but within a pretty prescriptive manner. So this is what success looks like. This is exactly when we want to go. This is how we want to get there. These are the pressures that our business have. This is the warehousing that we have. The more information that we get is great, but being told exactly what success looks like at the very beginning is absolutely paramount. Now, that should be something that is delivered in the information from whatever personality type that you are into to your potential supplier. Where it isn't means that we spend an awful lot of time guessing what the right thing should be, and that's not right. that doesn't produce work that is going to be successful or correct, and actually turns out being quite a bit of a waste of time, because we're not going to get the prescription at the very beginning, then we're also not going to get the feedback at the very end as to why it's not right. So within the RFP process, they work perfectly if we are fully aware and fully agreed on exactly what needs to be done and what it needs to be look like. But the more important thing in that is the feedback at the end. So we can learn and we can develop and we can understand, because exactly, you're right. You know, there'll be objections from people that we haven't considered, but we need to know exactly what they are to be able to improve and develop as a business. So if we get that, it's great.
Get that sort of preemptive advantage, because you actually understand, because you've done it quite a few times already. You sort of prepare for that type of thing. I think an RFP process, if I just think of the ones I've been involved in over my career, can be pretty difficult, because RFP generally is a written document, or it's a format, and you get an opportunity potentially just to present, and you end up being on the corridor, let's call it, with all the other the competitors in for that particular piece of work. So what would you say differentiates you know, your organization? I love the name, the fashion. I think it's well thought through. So tell us how you differentiate yourself and put yourself, you know, your own personality, etc. But how do you make yourself to be the one that sort of stands out, is more top of mind than your opponents, let's call it, your competition?
So thank you, and thank you on the name. You know, we spent a long time thinking about the positioning and how we were going to identify. To answer your question, we're in a particularly lucky position at the minute. Firstly, the industry shows a lot of love and interest to startups. If there's something interesting and something new, generally people feel that they want to have something to do with it or want to know what's going on. So we feel that there's an automatic kind of uplift in the interest in our business anyway. But the real thing that we're very lucky about is that all of the business that we're working on at the moment has been recommended to us. And it's been recommended to us by people that we've got long existing trading relationships with, who know how we work, know the way we work, and we've done successful things for them previously. So fortunately, you know, we launched into a difficult space, but we launched into a difficult space with a lot of friends of passion who helped us get going.
No, I love that. I think that's absolutely brilliant. And if I look at your some of the other items on your LinkedIn profile, what stood out for me as well, in addition to all the other things, is this where you talk about embracing new technology. Now technology is changing constantly. How do you stay or maintain, besides sort of doing your day-to-day activities, how do you sort of stay cutting edge? I mean, just staying on top of the changes and developments and the way things are moving, and even consumer behavior that's changing so rapidly. Although it stays the same, it does a lot of the formats do change, and this is probably the conundrum that we sit in as from a marketing point of view. So just let's talk around technology itself. You know, what have you seen over the last in your career over the last few years, especially recently, where things are going?
So there's an awful lot more measurement in place, and whilst this can be a good thing, because you certainly want to know that everything that you're doing is doing what it's supposed to be doing, I think that we get into a bit of a conundrum when we're potentially measuring things for measurement's sake. Now, I won't go into any complexities of various supply chains, but I do feel that the industry likes a shiny new thing. And that shiny new thing is not always linked into the performance of a campaign from a client's perspective. It might optimize part of a supply chain, but it shouldn't really come into conversations in marketing teams unless it's actually affecting the work that they need done. So I see a lot of that, and I see a lot of overcomplication of things, and potentially over intermediation of supply chains. But having said that, there are a lot of really wise insights that come out of it. So we're able to measure certainly on a very basic level, we're able to measure the amount of ads that are actually seen online. We're able to measure the audiences that make up the campaigns that are being delivered. And this is all absolutely valid and important stuff. So I don't know. I'm beginning to waffle. I feel in my
no, but it's a great answer, because what I'm finding, and I think you really hit the nail on the head there. There's almost a bit too much information, and sometimes the emphasis is put probably at the wrong end of the thing. So I mean, as a simple example, as a sort of a startup business owner yourself now, you're looking at look, how do I generate new work? So you don't need a massive, let's say, digital marketing campaign. What you can do is you can build out on your network. You can go in and build further relationship. You could be attending meetings, take people for coffee, for lunch, all the standard sort of non-technology things. Probably value you more than you trying to do measurement in terms of how many people saw your ad for fashion.
Agree, completely agree. So from when we're looking at our business, the human touches work far better than having any kind of CRM database in play. So you're absolutely right. And it kind of goes back to what I said at the beginning, that we are a people industry, and working with people gets the decisions done. So I'm much more interested in a coffee and a chat, and really understanding what the issues at hand actually are, rather than sending out cold emails to a database of people that may or may not be warm leads. So.
No, I love that, and I think as I mentioned, so just as things change, much of it stays the same. So a lot of the core concepts and principles in terms of human behavioral psychology and that stays the same. It's just that I think there's just a proliferation of choice. Unfortunately there's a lot of noise out there, and for marketing people, especially when you go and pitch for new work, is your clients and the people that you work with are trying to themselves to rise above the clutter and all that of all the noise. And sometimes just having a wise person, a wise head in the room, sitting down and saying, guys, you know what, there's a lot of noise out there. Let's focus on the things that are important. What would you say though those are now as organizations move forward, especially in the fashion industry?
Sorry, the things that are important. Okay, so the objectives by each brand will change, but they will all ultimately be driven back to sales. So we need to have front and center that is everything that we're doing going to change the results from a client's point of view into the amount of revenue that they make for what we do. And we have to keep considering that. And I think potentially, certainly as you get further down the supply chain, that is the eye's taken off that somewhat. So that needs to be certainly something that we're doing. But also, we need to be experts in, and actually you mentioned it earlier on, that things are changing and consumer behavior is changing, and everything is in a state of flux potentially. But we need to be able to decipher what that actually means, build out consumer behavioral profiles, and then bring those back to clients and be able to say that, look, I know that you still need to be doing this, but there are certain other things that you need to be focusing on to help drive that you may not have been beforehand. So sustainability is quite rightly become front and center in the conversations of the industry. And there are certain industries that are less sustainable in the way that they behave than others, and they need to do things to address that, because not only will it have an immediate effect on their business, but it also have a long-term effect on their business as consumers become more in tune to what they're doing and what its effects are on the planet. So I think that answers it.
No, it does. And it also raises additional things, because now you've got so many more outlets. You've got so many more ways of making sales. And when I look at, I happened across this the other day and on TikTok, and these people are selling, they've got their own stores they're creating on, I think they live. I think it feels like it's 24 hours a day, but it's a shopping channel like we knew on TV from years back, that just
Yeah,
carried on and on and on and selling stuff.
yeah,
Now it's on social media. The outlet, the distribution is different. There's also seems to be a proliferation of sort of knockoff brands, or knockoff, or let's call it uh, uh, branded material that's not actually legitimate. I don't know how to say. There's a lot of that stuff happening. And also in terms of high streets, the high street has changed in
mhm,
terms of the way that consumers see fashion, how they experience it. And also a lot of the department stores, as we know, have also changed in terms of the way that they engage and interact with their customers. I mean, an example, obviously it's in the US, but I watched a documentary around Macy's, for instance. I mean, Macy's as a store. I mean, I think it's one of the biggest ones in the US.
yep,
How they've started, how they've had to change the way that they sort of make the customer experience
mhm,
different, other than just a transactional thing. So, do you have to take that stuff into account when
yeah,
you're busy
of
pitching?
course. So there's a lot to unpack in what you've just said there. So yes, the high street has changed, and the high street will continue to change for a very long time, and we will see every business that is on a high street at the minute gradually drifting into having an online service. And I would imagine that over the course of time that the online services for each of the businesses that are on the high street will be a more significant share of revenue to them than the actual bricks and mortar outlets. So yeah, that change is happening.
Mm.
You did touch on something else there that I'm particularly fascinated with at the minute, in that the difference between high street retail and online retail is becoming more and more pronounced for me. Now, you used to go into HMV and you spend time running through records and having a bit of serendipity and discovering things that might have been not really on my mind, but kind of close to where I was, and there would be the odd purchase that would come from there. I don't feel that you can have a genuine discover moment in an online shopping environment. That
Mm.
there are algorithms at play that are making recommendations to me that don't understand my musical taste and don't really resonate to me, and kind of annoy you a little bit when you get them. That needs to be addressed, and over the course of time that
Mm.
we'll be understanding that more. But what I really see is even the most successful online retailers at the minute have very generic shops. They're largely built on like a Shopify kind of framework.
Mm.
They're very modular. It's set out in a grid layout. There's a white background with strong emphasis on each of the products. There's the price underneath them, and they largely look the same. So where you used to be able to differentiate as a retailer online by having your color, your smell, your environment, the way that people are trained to talk to you, to welcome you into the store, etc., where the tills are, and where, the whole retail experience is not replicated online. So there's a huge opportunity for somebody to get it really right by being able to deliver existing brand values from a high street into an online environment.
Yeah, I know it's not fashion, but the Cinnabon smell when you walk into a store and they got a Cinnabon, busy baking away there. You just don't get that online, do you? And even if you look at, again, it's not fashion, but it could very well be. But Apple stores, this whole thing about rolling out the ability to have the tacit experience, and I like your word discover, because I'm finding there's a big gap, because you can scroll. And I think there was a stat I heard there. I don't know how true it is, but people are scrolling on average 280 meters per day. The average person scrolls
Wow.
that distance. You know how far 280 meters is to scroll.
Yeah.
But the discover space is there's nothing nicer than going out and experiencing something, and touching it, and
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree. And almost finding things by mistake, which is a kind of, maybe this is something for us, given that we're in the industry, but certainly it feels much more pleasurable if if it's something that I feel in control of, rather than something being subject to an algorithm that, you bought that CD or that record, look, this is what everybody else bought. That doesn't really excite me.
Yeah, I had a client some years back, and there was something he said, and it stuck with me, and that's something about humans, and I mean you've touched on sort of behavioral psychology, but there's something special about humans, and that's what is the memory of moments.
Mhm.
It's moments that make up your life. It's those special times where you spend a bit of time with your family, or you go and discover something, and then you come home and share it. I mean, there's
Yeah,
nothing, if you go on holiday, and for the Americans, if they go on vacation, um, you go out, and if you go alone, it's not the same as going with somebody, with a friend, with a partner, or so on, and experiencing it together with someone else. It's that whole discovery and the ability to share. If
yeah,
you have a shopping experience and you are able to get something, find something, you say, wow, this is what I found today, go home and share that experience. For me, the value increase is much higher than something arrives at the door, in the in the cardboard box, and it's like,
yeah, I agree.
oh, this is what I got, and like, okay, well, that's all fair enough. I don't know what your comment is on that, because I want to touch on a slightly different type of business model that seems to have been quite successful. But what's your view on the whole discover the moment, that whole the human experience?
So I agree with you completely. Now, if we look at my daughter, she's 13 years old. She's just getting interested in going shopping, and she'll spend time in our local town shopping with her mates at the weekend. She is far more excited to be out and about in person with her mates than spending time when she has free time at home in shopping online. So I completely agree. And it's about that shared moment, and it's about everybody endorsing what you're buying, so that you know that it's been kind of tested by other people before you even put it in your shopping bag. I don't really think that you get that in an online environment. So I tend to agree with what you say.
It's very, very difficult, but on the flip side, and this was years ago. I mean, we're talking, I don't know, 10 years ago. Zappos. You remember Zappos, the shoe store, the online shoe store? What this guy had done, and he started entirely for women's shoes, an entirely online store before it was a big thing, or
Mhm.
that big a thing, where women, now you would imagine, you would need to try on a pair of shoes, surely. You would need to get a sense of what they like, and get the fabric, or whatever the material, and so on, and get at least sort of get a sense of what it looks like on your feet. Now they didn't even have a retail environment. I don't know if you have come across the story of Zappos. Was it Zappos?
No, I don't remember. I remember boo.com, which was the online trainer store, which had some really interesting graphics that you could see it all around, and it looked amazing, but you couldn't
But
experience
but
trying it
what
on,
what
obviously.
these guys had done is that they had worked out that the tacit experience is still required, and I wanted to get your view on that. And this was that what they encouraged women to do, and they tended to sell more, is they encouraged women to go in and select a few more pairs than they would normally select, get them delivered, and the ones they don't want, they can return for free.
Right.
So, so from a marketing point of view, they ended up almost doubling the amount of shoes they sold, because many people didn't necessarily send them back.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit about that, and as from a behavioral point of view, and your view on that as an approach. I don't know if they still exist. I mean, I can't tell you that, but it was just an interesting concept.
So there's a couple of things in there as well. So we are seeing that returns of products online are far higher than they are for people buying things in store. And you're quite right. Online retailers are allowing consumers the ability to buy 5 or 6 different sizes or shapes of a dress or a jumper or whatever it might be, and they're sending the others back. Now, that's not really a sustainable model for the brand in the first place, because of the cost of re-warehousing, of recycling, of maybe even re-washing and presenting the clothes that are being sent back cannot be delivered within a mechanic that also includes free returns. So it's kind of a crazy behavior that we're doing. If we are expecting to be behaving as individuals in the interest of the planet, then buying 6 versions of something and sending 5 back does not do that at all.
It's not a sustainable model, and again, it does interfere with environmental impact, and obviously a lot of waste.
It's hugely wasteful. It's massively wasteful from the retailer's point of view. If they are getting 5 out of 6 items that they are selling are being returned, it's not good.
Yeah, no, I'm loving that. Thank you for that, because I agree with that. I think that's just crazy. And the other thing is that sizes are difficult to see online. So when things arrive, you bought yourself, I don't know, a book, or I don't know, a key ring, or I don't know, whatever it is, and it arrives and it's either a lot smaller or a lot bigger, or the sizes in terms of clothing, extra large for one manufacturer is not the same as extra large for another.
No, it's not. No, you're absolutely quite right. There are multiple sizing conventions, and it creates confusion, but which then kind of results in more things being sent back.
So just as we come, I mean, we're a few minutes away from the end now, and I want to just touch on something a little bit more technical, and that's what I see is the media evaluation. So walk us through a process of, because you talk about the supply chain, and maybe if you can just expand a bit on that, and tell us about this media evaluation. What does that entail? What do you evaluate? What's your criteria? How do you go about doing that?
So one of the great things that happened with businesses moving online is that the analytics for online are far more immediately available than they are for in-store redemption mechanics. So what we can see is, if we run a spot on TV, we know the audience pretty quickly that it's being delivered against, and then we can look into the analytics on site to see whether or not it matches to a spike of activity in terms of sessions online, but then even more interestingly, whether that turns into a spike of activity of people purchasing, or even better still, first time purchasers. So we're able to see that in a far more timely manner than we were ever able to see anything like that previously. And that's brilliant. And that's where we start coming into the analysis and the attribution of media. But we want to make sure that all of the media that we're using in a media mix for a client are contributing to an increase in awareness, an increase in sessions, an increase in purchase, an increase in first time purchase. Those are the 4 things that we really want to be able to drive, and we can do that with attribution models.
So let's take it back to that RFP process that we spoke about earlier. You haven't had the data yet. You haven't had the opportunity yet to collect data or run a test and so on. But now you're doing an RFP with probably a few competitors for a particular, let's say, product launch or an existing product and so on. How do you evaluate that? Because you haven't actually had exposure yet, maybe for a particular product, region, demographic, or whatever it is, the analytics around that. How do you manage to balance sort of I think you spoke about a few assumptions that you had to make, but is that pretty much your process, or do you go based on a lot of your probably past experience? I'm guessing that's where your wealth of experience comes in to play.
Well, the less specific a brief is, the more we have to rely on experience in answering it. But what we always do is when we're talking to a business or a potential new client, one of the first things that we ask for is access into Google Analytics or whatever their analysis suite is, so that we can dig into the data and we can start seeing trends and behaviors that we may be able to exploit in the marketing. It's really important that we get a strong understanding of what a business is doing as a baseline without advertising before we can start building a model of what advertising might look like for them.
Okay, very good. So I want to just sort of change a bit. I want to go now into your business, fashion, and I want to talk about you and your activities and so on. And I've noticed that you've got there's publications. So there's Jobs in Games, there's the marketing blog, Marketing Week, Media Week, IGN and Talk Sports, Sign, cross-platform ad deal, and all that. So, I mean, tell us a little bit about those, your exposure to that, and your experience around these different publications.
So you've chosen some of the things that we've had out as articles or pieces. Maybe there's a Marketing Week piece that we wrote on festivals, and the Talk Sport thing that we did was about a cross deal that we'd done from IGN. I think it's quite important to be. I mean, there are a number of reasons. There's obviously an ego thing. You when you do good work, you want to be able to talk about good work and show it to other people. But also, there's a new business element in there that if we are doing interesting things and they are in the public domain, then we want to be able to share them so that we can do more of that.
Yeah, I'm loving that, because I think there's value, and I want to talk to you about the content, because you've got various honors awards. You got winner of Sales Team of the Year, Media Team of the Year, and so on. And these days, I think in terms of the let's call it the customer journey, when people buy things, there's obviously brand does count, reputation counts, reviews count a lot more now than in the past, and so on. But for yourself as a startup business, I mean, you started in March. You're developing at a rapid rate. You've obviously got a massively brilliant career that you've built and grown now in time, and now you're expanding and developing that further. Tell me a bit about how do you see sort of content? This podcast is content. Doing those publications is content. How important is content now for you as a, let's say, as a I mean, you're a well-established guy, but also in terms of establishing your brand and so on?
I think it's essential because it's a showcase of your opinion rather than you just putting your opinion out there. And if you can create argument and conversation around things that you're interested in and that you're interested in for your clients, then great, keep going with it. I think the more you put out there, the better the understanding that your customers and your colleagues, etc., will have of you and how you are as business. I think that's pretty important. But the other thing that becomes really interesting is that it's an interesting new business tool that is always on when you might not be. So as kind of opportunities globalize and people from different countries have access to us and other people, if you can find out more about them and when they're off and whatever it might be, then that's going to be pretty useful as kind of your content spreads around the world. So yeah, hopefully it's all a new business tool as well.
Excellent. So I want to give you the opportunity now, as we come to a close, to tell us about your company, what you can do, what's your ideal client look like, and who would you like to talk to? Who would you like to sort of share your message and your work with?
Well, thank you for that. So Passion was set up in March 2022 after observations that were made over the last couple of years about how people's behaviour had changed as consumers. We wanted to offer advertisers the ability to be able to use seasoned thinking and best practice thinking that had been developed over 20 plus years by the founders so that they had access to tools and insight that may not have been delivered to those particular industries that we are servicing. Those industries are fashion, entertainment, and leisure. They've typically been largely implementational planning delivered to them, but we wanted to go a step further back and deliver something more of a strategic approach. So with everything changing and with everybody's behaviours changing over the pandemic years, we felt that the time was right to be able to offer that as a discrete and unique service to advertisers. So if you're in fashion, entertainment and leisure and you want a slightly different perspective on how things can be done, then we're here to talk. Love to.
I love that. So passion, fashion. I love the way you say a new media playbook for fashion, leisure, and entertainment brands.
We thought it was time to do it differently. And it's
it.
all about putting the advertiser completely front and center.
Yeah, and the passion again, it probably comes from your Myers-Briggs as well. But
well, yeah, maybe, but we wanted to work with brands and releases that we can get behind and genuinely believe in. I don't particularly want to work with dog food or insurance or categories that I'm not interested in.
But I mean, quite frankly, it's a really fun and fascinating space as an industry. So, and it's constantly changing. So
Yeah,
no wonder. So passion.media is
That's
your
right.
website. So passion is PASHN.
Yep.
.media. How do people get hold of you, Adam? What's the best way for people to get hold of you?
So the very best way is by phone. My number is underneath my profile on LinkedIn. That'll be the thing that I always respond to immediately. And then if you want to drop us a line or whatever, we're here. But if it's important to you, it'll be important to us. Give me a call.
Love it. Love the personal touch. Love that is not just a text message or a DM. It's a
phone is always the best.
I love it. Fantastic. Adam, thank you very much. Fascinating talking to you today. Thank you for joining us today. I do appreciate your time and the great insights you've shared with us.
That's an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Dudley. I hope you found that useful. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Yes, I definitely enjoyed it. Thank you very much. I'm gonna sign you off, and I'm going to say goodbye to our audience.
Take care. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Adam. Thanks everyone for joining us today on another episode of sort of our marketing leadership, and as part of the 100 Days and Beyond M&A based podcast. But marketing leadership for me is a space within business growth, business development, and the development of companies and the engagement companies have with consumers, with their supply chain, and the multiple aspects of making business work and the development of business. Thank you again for joining us. Please join us again on the next episode of our marketing leadership, fractional CMO marketing leadership, which is a work stream of the M&A space. But all the best. See you on the next episode. Bye-bye.